Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to April 6, 2017, Benicia Unified School District regular board meeting. We have nothing to report out on closed session. So at this time, I'd like to ask you all to stand to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and our student from Joe Henderson will lead us. Thank you. At this time, do we have a motion to approve the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. We have a highlight tonight.
We do. Good evening, trustees. Good evening, everybody. An opportunity to come and join us tonight. So we have an exciting highlight. It focuses on Odyssey of the Mind, and our middle school team has experienced a great achievement. But I'm going to, with that, let staff and those students come forward now. And if staff will give an introduction as to what Odyssey of the Mind is and the great achievement that they've experienced. And then they're going to put on a skit for us. So welcome, staff. But when you come forward, please make sure you introduce yourself to the trustees. Thank you.
The trustees are moving to the audience so we can see and watch everything.
The name.
All right. Good evening. My name is Maya Nelson, Vice Principal at Benicia Middle School.
Lynn Spelski, other vice principal.
So we have two great achievements to share with everyone. Did you know that we have a team of BMS students competing for a world championship? Our Our Odyssey of the Mind team of Ali Daw, Aiden Torres, Blake Harris, Michael Cerna, Jonah Tillotson, Jacob Knott, and Aiden Schultz competed in the regional and state competitions and earned their spot in the end of May in Michigan for the opportunity to compete for a world title.
All right. And what is Odyssey of the Mind? It's an academic competition where students have to solve a problem or question and demonstrate their solution in a creative way. At the state championships, our team performed a skit about a superhero that saved the day 3 times, which included a cliffhanger. I am so proud of these boys. We are so proud of these boys, and we wish them all the best of luck as they move forward. Good luck.
So, I kind of already said this, but we had something written too. So, Odyssey of the Mind is a competition that requires creativity and thinking outside of the box. It has 2 components, a long-term problem and a spontaneous problem. The long-term will be worked on for 5 months, and every year there are 5 new long-term problems that you can choose and solve. Some problems are like engineering-based, where you can build a structure out of balsa wood that can support large amount of weights, while others are performance-based. The spontaneous problem, which can be either verbal hands-on, or just hands-on, is given to you at the competition, unlike the long-term problem, which you have a while to figure out, 5 months. The judge will read you your problem, give you about 1 to 6 minutes to think, depending on the type of problem. Then your team will respond. That's for spontaneous. A verbal spontaneous could be everyone creativity answering the question like, form a sentence using night and night with a K and then with an N. And a hands-on could be building the tallest possible structure with only marshmallows and toothpicks.
So for our long-term problem, we chose To Be Continued, a superhero cliffhanger. The idea was that creativity was being threatened by a supervillain, and that a superhero would have to rise up and defeat that villain. Our skit and our spontaneous problem scores were high enough for us to take first place at the regional competition and move on to state. At state, we took second place, which qualified for the world competition in Michigan later this May. Misha Middle School, are you ready?
Ready like spaghetti.
You may begin. The Adventures of Sir Rapsalot, a comic book story, issue number 1. Subscription ad. 10 issues for $15. Good deal. And Misha Middle School makes it to the world competition? Oh, there's a GoFundMe page. The story is chillin' and thrilling and begins with a messed up villain. He grew up with a tragic past. When he was little, he entered art contests, but he always finished last. He couldn't draw a tree or an apple or a dog. He couldn't even dance or sing a simple song. To make a long story short, the kid was always hated. And to think, it was just because he wasn't creative. He was teased and had it quite rough. So then he thought, enough was enough. He decided he was going to make things fair by stealing creativity from everyone out there. He would take the creativity all for his account unless stopped by a hero, which is what this story is about.
So what did you find out?
These new Y-phones have been changing people somehow.
Well, who's been making all these new Y-phones?
Mr. Not Raps Enough.
Oh my
my
gosh,
God,
look at his
that's
new
the
iPhone!
Are you okay? Are you okay? He's not okay.
Those people have lost their creative rainbows. Someone must be stealing their creativity. This looks like a job for Sir Rapsalot.
Hey there, gentlemen. Would you guys like to buy a brand new phone?
This is the new Y-phone.
Wait a minute. This isn't an average phone seller. This is Mr. Not Raps Enough.
Mr. Harrison. Oh wait, that's me.
So you're trying to steal creativity with those phones? Well, I guess I have to tell you that you're about to get owned because everything I rhyme with comes true. Like, say, for instance, I have a Mountain Dew. Come on, sidekick. Sorry. I really need to get on with this show. That's why I'm going to make all the phones explode. Pow!
You see, our hero has the ability to make anything he rhymes with come true. If he wants a tall latte with cream, all he has to do is ask for it, then say something that rhymes with it. He uses this power to defeat the villain who tried to steal creativity with his new invention, the Y-phone. The people who lost their creativity had their shirts turned plain black, and they lost their creative rainbow. After the phone failure, the villain decided to switch to something a bit bigger, the car. He created a car that's advertised as needing no fuel and running on only your body heat. But really, the car steals your creativity if you touch any of the sensors on the inside.
This is a really cool car, Dad. How's it work?
Like they say in all the commercials, it runs off your body heat when you touch any of the sensors on the inside.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Dad, what's for dinner?
Tonight's dinner will be a piece of bread. Plain old bread.
Okay.
That. Sir Rapsalot, where are you?
Shh. You mustn't see my real name in public. When I'm homeless, my name is Bob.
Bob, is that you?
Yes, right here.
I knew it. Bob, it seems like people are losing their creativity once again.
But how?
Coincidentally, a new car came out, and guess who created it?
Mr. Not Raps Enough. This looks like another job for Sir Rapsalot.
Oh, hey there, fine gents. Would you guys like to buy a brand new car?
This is the new Y car.
Wait a minute. He's done it again. This is Mr. Not Raps Enough.
No.
You moved past the phones once you saw you got owned. It was really too easy to make them explode. Their shirts were no longer just plain black. Well, that's because I got their creativity back. Come on, you've really taken this too far. That's why I'll have to run you over with your own car.
Bam!
Man, our hero's rhymes are so good, he ran out the villain with his own car. The villain has just created an ingenious design for robotic bees. They look very realistic, but if they sting you, they suck out your creativity. The bees are set to be released in about 2 minutes when the villain presses the big red button. Hopefully, our hero will be able to stop him.
Now, with all these bees, I'll get everyone's creativity for sure!
Not so fast.
What? How did you find me?
We use Google Maps.
No matter now, I'll just push the big red button.
Wait! First, let's play a quick game of hide and seek. Yes. Come on, you can count. Dun, 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 hurry. Dun. All these wires. Which one to pull? I guess let's pull them all.
I smell a distraction. No matter now, I should push the big red button.
It was a trick. And now I'm going to defeat you once and for all.
So you want to fight?
Well, no, not really. I'd rather rap than punch you and hurt your feelings. So I challenge you to a battle of wits, rather than just using pure violence. So I'll go first. I'll rap one verse. I'll rhyme so good that you'll end up cursed. Enough small talk. Let's get on with the show. I'll start rapping when you say go.
Go. Sir raps a lot.
Yeah. Let's all look here. I spit mad rhymes, but whenever you rap, it's really just a climb, so you better be quiet before I go farther. Then it occurred to me, why do I even bother?
That's all you got? That was really bad. Your non-existent rapping skills are really quite sad. How in the world did you beat me before with your raps right now, which are just a real bore? How on earth did you foil my plans by using those raps, which are really quite bland?
The battle went on and on. They rapped so hard, they ended up pushing each other into another city.
Let's end this right here and now, Sir Raps a lot.
Okay? You know, this is like a roller coaster. First I'm homeless, then I gotta come here and roast you. You know, I gotta give props, because you're like a soccer player. You always flop. Now I'm gonna turn this page, because I'm about to chew you up, spit you out, and boo you off stage. You tried to steal creativity, but ended up with nothing. That's why I'm about to end you with a giant muffin.
No, please, I'm allergic to blueberries, please!
You finally been defeated, villain.
Your battle's not over yet, Sir Absolot.
What? No! I never expected you to be an alien. I would just thought you were clumsy, not that your eyes were on top of your head.
Yes! My people have sensed Mr. Narasana stealing your people's creativity, and we have come to take it for ourselves.
But after all we've been through.
My people need your creativity to survive. We have lost all ours, and we're stuck in the disco era. Tonight, the invasion begins!
Oh man, I hate cliffhanger endings.
Well,
That's a wrap!
Thanks for doing that. That was great. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Great job.
Thank you all very much for that. That was outstanding. So they're looking for volunteers to drive their props back to Michigan. Okay, at this time, we will continue on with our board meeting and move to student reports.
Hi, I'm Natalie Sluga. I'm a leadership student and I'm also a co-public relations.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn Smith, and I'm the other Public Relations Commissioner.
This is the high school?
Yes, from Benicia High School. This week we had March Madness going on where 16 teams competed in basketball and the champions played the teachers and also beat the teacher team. Our spring sports are boys tennis, swim, baseball, softball, track, and badminton, and all are currently going on right now. 99.7 radio station came to our school, and DJ Strawberry performed at lunch since a Benicia High student won a competition on a radio station where Bay Area school could be taken over by the radio station.
Also, the seniors on the 22nd were able to participate in a DUI court to understand how our court system works. Yesterday, the band held a small ensemble concert in the PAB that showcased the band's many talents. Also, this week was Spirit Week. In order to get ready for prom on Saturday, the theme was festivals, and tomorrow we have a rally. The theme is Coachella.
And also, our spring break starts on Saturday.
And what else is Saturday?
Oh, and prom is Saturday.
We have a couple of students from Joe Henderson.
Good evening, school board members and members of the community. Thank you for having us here this evening. I am Emery Lee, and this is Angelina Skaggs, and we are from Joe Henderson Student Council. Tonight, we would like to share with you some of the exciting things happening at our school. Back in December, the Student Council sponsored a toy and food drive that also benefited the Benicia Community Action Council. This is the 8th year we have done this, and it is always one of our favorite community service events. Our Henderson Hounds and their families are always so generous and giving, and we are able to make sure that many Benicia families have a wonderful holiday season.
In February, we organized the delivery of Smallentines, which included a written note delivered with a scented pencil. The students really enjoyed it. Also, in February, our 4th and 5th graders went on their outdoor education field trips to Kelowna and Mission Springs. Both trips proved to be very adventurous in the wet weather, but everyone had an awesome time and made memories to last up a lifetime. At the end of February, our amazing parent-teacher group teamed up once again with the Robert Simple PTG and organized the Mardi Gras auction. It was such a fun night for our parents, and each school earned $16,000. We are so grateful for the amazing families of both Henderson and Semple for supporting our schools.
We also have lots to look forward in the coming months. We are excited to support the BEF Run for Education on April 23rd. Joe Henderson students and families will be out dressed in our orange and black. We can't wait to release the hounds, and we hope to be able to keep the perpetual trophy again this year. In May, we will be recognizing our teachers and staff members during Staff Appreciation Week. Our teachers and staff members work hard each and every day to help us grow as students and as citizens in our community, and we love to show them our appreciation. We will also be dancing the night away at our Pancakes and PJs family dance. At the end of the year, we will also be celebrating Joe Henderson's 30th anniversary with a birthday party. We can't wait to celebrate our fantastic school.
Finally, we are excited to be on spring break and look forward to enjoying the sun, hopefully, and the fact that we can sleep in. We will also use the break to get an extra reading time. We hope you will too, and tonight we have brought you each of you an official Henderson Hound bookmark, so you never lose your place in a book. Thank you for letting us visit tonight, and go Hounds!
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job.
Superintendent report?
So just a couple items, nicely done. Extra reading time over spring break. I like it. Nice. Couple of quick items. I wanted to pay an appreciation to Miss Jan Rajensky and Dr. Beatson. I think this was last week when we had 2 weeks ago, we had the LCAP strategic plan gallery walk. And they did an amazing job putting that together and creating an opportunity for parents, students, staff to come into the boardroom and to look at all of the ideas in the LCAP and provide their input to us. And they did something, Dr. Beatson's idea, I believe, very clever, where they had an iPad and they had different individuals record different sections of the gallery walk. So when you walked in, you checked out an iPad, you plugged in, and you held onto it as you went around, and you were tutored as you went along, and it helped guided people through the process. So that was very well done, and it's guiding that effort nicely. So thank you for that. We had the Mini Makers Fair at the middle school on Sunday. I had a chance to attend that, and it was fairly well attended. Nice activities for the students. Saw many parents there and staff. And we had lots of celebrations the last few weeks. Last week, we had a gold ribbon visit at the middle school, and their focus was on the social and emotional well-being of students. And they came in, they did the visit, and they got an approval. The people from the county office over there were very impressed with the work taking place at the high school, and so they're being forwarded on to the state. Last week, the high school also got a gold ribbon visit, validation visit, and they also got the approval forwarded on to the state. And the high school, they applied for a second level for just, the first one was for visual and performing arts, and then the second one just focused on, I think, just, it's hard to explain. Just
It's sort of a supplementary authorization.
it's supplementary. In the second visit this week, somebody actually came from the California State Department of Education. So it's a big deal. We're very proud of it. We're very proud of the work that the staff does and the principals. And we'll be hearing, I got an email from Tarlickson. We should be hearing within the next couple of weeks that both of the schools will be validated. So we're very proud of the staff and the administration there for the work that they're doing. So hats off to them. And I'm going to introduce some really cool people in a while. So that's it for me right now.
Okay. Board reports.
Well, I was able to attend the validation meeting at the high school, and that was great. One of the really fun things, aside from hearing from the Gold Ribbon Committee, was the art and activities display that was set up for the Gold Ribbon Committee. So we got to see a lot of the work that the students have been doing over the last year, and it was really amazing. I was like, they should just put a price tag on some of these things, and we'll have a fundraiser. And so that was great. On the BEF front, you heard about the race already from our lovely Henderson Hounds. We're looking forward to seeing you out there. We do also need volunteers for the race. So in addition to runners, if you're interested in volunteering, you can sign up on the BEF race page. The BEF also awarded 4 mini grants for teachers this week, and we'll be hearing from our teachers who have earned mini grants at our May meeting and updates from them. And then also in recognition of our teachers, I'd like to announce that the Night of Stars is going to be September 29th, and that's the night that we celebrate our teachers of the year and our staff of the year and our administrators of the year. And so that'll be September 29th, and it's always a great event, so we're looking forward to this fall's event. Tickets will be available online on the BEF website after the race is over. One thing at a time, right? But mark your calendars for the date. That's it for me.
Okay. So I got to go with Trustee Ferrucci, who's not here tonight, to the Legislative Advocacy Day for the California School Board Association. And it was really interesting. We got to meet with Bill Dodd and Tim Grayson about some specific education policy issues in legislation and issues that CSBA has decided to focus on currently with different congressional folk. I also got to take part in the first and second portions of the Masters in Governance training, which I'm really happy to be supported by the school district to do so. And then today, Mary Farmer had their talent show. In fact, it's going on right now. And it was great. It's a great show. By far, my daughter's in 5th grade, so we've been there 6 years, and by far the funnest show. Lots of really talented kids who are. I'm so impressed by their chutzpah and their ability to get up there on stage and sing unaccompanied and dance and really. It seemed, and the best part was that it was a really felt really safe environment for the kids. Like the kids were all really supported by their peers when they're up there, and it was a great event.
I too went to the validation last week, and I also went to yesterday's validation for the visual and fine arts. And it was great to sit in the meeting with the staff, and also the meeting where they talked with the students and former students and parents, and just hearing. I think every one of them said how much they that was their family. That group, the band kids or the drama kids or whatever group they were in, that was their family, and that's some of them were involved in those activities from elementary school on, and others started once they got in high school. But to hear that and hear the positive, the positive influence of those activities, so that was really good. And also there's a couple of students from the football team who was also there, and they weren't part of anybody that was being validated, but they talked about how much the band and drama meant to the team and kind of brought the team together. So an outside source, that was kind of nice to hear too. We got to recognize somebody last week up in the administrators, AXA. Kathleen Zuli is our Employee of the Year, and ASCA's Regional 4 Employee of the Year. So that was nice to go up there and recognize her. And I think that's all I have to say. So this time I want to thank our students and dismiss you. Thank you.
By the way, President Wing, the reason we don't have any Liberty students is because they have all graduated early. All of the leadership students graduated early.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we will take comments from members of the public. Members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards which may be completed requesting to address the board are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment, and comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. And by law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on the future agenda of the governing board. So I have Monica Brown.
Good evening. My name is Monica Brown, and I'm here as your County Board of Supervisor for District 2. I also taught school for 39 years, so that was like old home week to come and see all that. It was so really cool. So there's a couple reasons why I'm here. Number one, my office was able to give $500 to the Benicia Middle and High School Band, and we also were able to give $500 to the elementary music teacher, which I understand just is one, but that was fun because I met him at the crab feed. But I'm here also tonight because April is known as Children's Month in Solano County. I'm not going to read all the whereases, but I'll read the few that are near and dear to my heart. So Solano County is committed to the improvement of health and wellness for all those who live and work in our community, and acknowledges the health, safety, and well-being of young children in Solano County as critical components of the Solano County Board of Supervisors strategic plan. And Solano County Library, because I know many of us did work on Measures B and Measure L, in conjunction with American Library Association and public libraries across the country, celebrate April 9th through the 15th, 2017 as National Library Week. And it sounds like from our young folks at the elementary school, they are going to read next week, so more power to them. So therefore, let it be resolved that the Solano County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of April 2017 as Children's Month in Solano County and encourages all residents to support the health, safety, and well-being of children and youth in Solano County. And we did this on Tuesday, April 4th, and so I had an opportunity to come and present it. So I will pass it along. And again, there's more whereases, but 3 minutes. And I know it's raining out and some of us would maybe like to get home and hopefully there won't be any kind of more flooding, which is what I had to deal with less than 2 weeks into my administration, so to speak. So one of the things that I just want to, on a personal note, let me know of anything that's going on in education. I come from a different point of view than the other Board of Supervisors because I have been in the classroom. So should that come to fruition for the middle school and high school or elementary or whatever, I would love to be notified. I would love to come. Normally I wear my education cut shirt, but I wore that the other day and laundry gets done on the weekends. I'm sure many of you recognize that. I'm unable to come to your marathon because I have another gig. As in, I'm going to DC to talk about retired teachers and the issues that we have there. But even more than that, I do know a lot of the elected officials. I had a chance to talk to Kevin De Leon about the $1.9 billion cut in Prop 98 and that we can't afford that because, you know, Prop 30 and then renewing it on Prop 55. So I am that advocate for you at the County Board of Supervisors for kids because I've lived it. So whatever I can do to help. And I apologize for waiting 4 months to get here, but sometimes my Thursdays seem to get busy. And so I want to acknowledge the audience. It's a wonderful audience that you have here to pay attention to what's going on. And not every place has that many people. Okay. So thank you very much for letting me speak. Take care.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Okay, at this time, I will close public comment. And we'll move to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request items to be polled and discussed. Do we have a recommendation?
I would like to have an item pulled from the consent calendar, please.
Okay, which item?
The second approval of board policy changes. 11.6.
11.6?
Actually, it's 11.7, second reading. Yeah, we have two.
Okay.
11.7, please.
Okay, do we have a recommendation? Or that was your recommendation?
That is my recommendation. To
That
pull it.
we approve and then pull that, Okay,
So now we approve the rest of them.
okay.
I second.
You second that? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And you're 11.7?
Yes, so under 11.7, we have the paragraph employee compensation, board policy revision. This board policy revision under overtime compensation is based on potential changes in law 81 Federal Regulation 32391. That regulation has been stayed by the court and it was enjoined on November 22nd, 2016 and appealed on December 1st, and there's no outcome to the appeal. So I propose that we hold that and send it back to CSBA for review.
Is that BP 4151?
No, it's the employee compensation board policy, first one.
Oh, 41, yeah.
41, yeah, so BP 4151. And that's the only thing in 11.7?
Yes. First thing on it. The rest look fine.
Okay, do we have a recommendation to pass 11.7 minus BP 4151?
I will make a recommendation to pass 11.7 without 4151.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. And we'll send back to staff BP 4151 and get the recommendation from CSBA and the state on that. Get a follow-up on that if we can. Okay. And we have some gifts. From Rod Sherry and Chris Ferrucci, Cullen, Sherry, and Associates, $3,000 to our Benicia High School engineering class. So thank you for all that. Actually, that was engineering equipment valued at $3,000. So thank you. We appreciate that. Superintendent.
Thank you. So there are three individuals that I would like to introduce to the community tonight. We've had two retirements and an individual who's leaving us in a leadership role and going back to a state where she once worked. And so that created three openings for us. And these are key leadership positions. And we went through an interview process and had lots of amazing candidates and went through a rigorous interview process and did lots of paper screening. And we selected three important people that I would like to introduce to you tonight. And I'd like to start off with the new principal of Liberty High School, Mr. Zachary Pless. If you can come forward, please. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Pless. Mr. Pless lives in town. He has three beautiful children. His handsome son has joined him this evening. And real quick about Mr. Pless. Mr. Pless got his degree in history from Chico State, and then his master's degree from the University of California at Berkeley. He was a science teacher for a number of years in Martinez, and he had a number of interesting jobs. He was a coordinator of after-school intervention programs, a summer school principal. He had a very interesting position, I thought, in Berkeley for the Berkeley Unified School District. It was program supervisor of extended learning. I thought that was interesting. Mr. Pless has been a Tier 2 administrative coach. And for the last 3 years, he has been the assistant principal of Martinez Junior High School in our neighboring school district. And he is joining us as our new principal at our model continuation school. So we'd like to welcome you this evening, Mr. Pless.
Thank you so much. I've lived in this community for a long time, so I'm just really excited to be able to finally kind of merge that, residency with work. Looking forward to my commute, which I think will be about 8 blocks. My children go to school here. Rocco is right now is in the 2nd grade at Mary Farmer, and I have 2 other young boys who will eventually be going to those schools as well. I really look forward to working with all the people I've met so far in Benicia. Everyone's been so welcoming and so kind and very helpful, and I really do appreciate that. I think Liberty is a wonderful school that's going to have a lot of great things that we can introduce, and I'm looking forward to all the different changes and movement, and also continuing of traditions that have existed there for a long time. The mentoring program and some of the other gardening things that have been there have been awesome. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. All right. So next person I'd like to invite to the podium is Miss Melanie Buck. Miss Garton was the principal at Henderson Elementary School, and she's moving on and going back to, I believe, her home state. So this created an opportunity for us, and I'd like to welcome Miss Buck tonight. Miss Buck got her degree from Western Washington University, her Bachelor of Arts degree in education. She also got her master's degree from the University of California at Berkeley. And Miss Buck has held a number of interesting leadership positions in her 17-year career for the Vallejo Unified School District, the last 5 of which she's been an elementary principal, but she's been a master teacher, a TOSA, an intern coach. You were a classroom teacher for a number of years. And like I said, for the last 5 years, you've been an elementary school principal. So we are very delighted to have you joining us. Ms. Buck also lives in town. Her husband and their beautiful daughter is here joining them. So welcome. So we'd like to welcome you to the Benicia family as well. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I am honored to accept this opportunity to be principal of Joe Henderson. And clearly I'm going to have to get Emery and Angelica in my pockets to show me the ropes, because that whole PJ and pancake thing sounds like a lot of fun. Expectations of me are very high. They're high for my daughter, and I would expect all students to to adhere to those expectations. So I know that many wonderful things have already been established at Joe Henderson, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what things we can take to the next level and how I can serve my community. We love Benicia. We're never going to leave, and I'm very proud to have a good foundation from Vallejo for 17 years and hopefully have my next 16 years, don't do the math, to figure out retirement in Benicia. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm excited to serve. Thank you.
All right, the next important person that we'll be welcoming to our leadership team is Dr. Kushwinder Gill. If you could come forward, please. So we are welcoming Dr. Gill as our new Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Dr. Gardner is retiring, right? And that's an absolute right there. You know? He likes to remind me of that every day. But
don't stress him out.
Don't stress him out. But we're very delighted to have Dr. Gill join us. So some things about Dr. Gill. Dr. Gill got her degree, Bachelor of Science from Punjab Agricultural University in India. And then she got her master's and her doctorate at the University of Pacific, Dr. Hogan's alma mater. Right? Dr. Gill was a teacher for a number of years, a science teacher, and she worked in the same district I did many years ago, but our paths did not cross. Dr. Gill was a principal out in Tracy Unified. And it was interesting when I did, we do exhaustive reference checks on folks. And when I was doing reference checks on Dr. Gill and talking to her superintendent, before he hired her, he said that Dr. Gill was a legend out in Tracy. So we're very glad to hear that. And so for the last 5 years, Dr. Gill has been the assistant superintendent of kind of worn several hats, but mostly human resources and ed services and student services, but also doing work in instructional services. She said that she wrote the LCAP this year with the community input. So her district, Lammersville, is about the size of BUSD, and it's grown considerably over the last few years. So Dr. Gill has worn many hats and lots of experience in human resources, which is important to us. So we're very happy to welcome you to the team. So welcome. Oh, also, Dr. Gill does not live in town yet, and she might. And she is joined by her beautiful daughter. She has 2 daughters, her brilliant and beautiful daughter, and there she is. So,
she also goes to UC Berkeley, so there's a UC Berkeley.
There you go. There you go. Well, welcome.
Thank you. So, good evening, distinguished board members, Superintendent Dr. Young, Benicia Unified School District scholars, staff, parents, and community members. I'm very pleased, humbled, and honored to accept the position of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources in Benicia Unified School District. I am very excited to serve the Benicia Unified School District scholars, staff, and community members, and eager to make a positive difference by working together side by side with everyone in the BUSD family. I believe in family relationships. To me, that's very close to my heart. Huge thanks to the governing board, Dr. Young, the cabinet team, and the interview committee for providing me this wonderful opportunity. I have previously served, as Dr. Young mentioned, as the assistant superintendent, principal, assistant principal, teacher, bilingual instruction assistant, and a part-time college professor. So I've done it like classified positions, certificated positions, management positions, all of it. Especially that's very, very important in HR, and especially people know that you have went through their shoes. It goes to people's heart. I've been married for the past 23 years, and I have 2 beautiful daughters, and my older one is right here. And as the assistant superintendent, my goal will be to follow our district's beliefs and our district's mission of creating a safe environment for all of our scholars and also providing a quality education and a caring community. By working together as a team with our parents and our staff, I'm committed to helping each of our scholars to meet their diverse needs and achieve their very best. I will be working most summer days, starting the following week. We're meeting following week. During this summer, to ensure a smooth transition. Dr. Gardner already told me, he said, come here quick because I'm leaving soon. So I said, okay, I'm coming the following week. I look forward to getting to know everyone. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This time we're going to move to 12.1, Benicia Middle School Modernization Progress Update. You want to, Dr. Young?
So we'd like to welcome Mr. Lee Pollard and Roxanne Egan, our bond manager, to the podium. This presentation will center on a progress update on where we are with the modernization effort at the middle school. We've taken on a few iterations, and we think we're in a good place. And Mr. Pollard will update you on the input that he's received from the staff and the conversations that the Facilities Oversight Committee has had. So welcome, Mr. Pollard.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Thank you all for having me here this evening. I wanted to just give you a quick update on what we've been doing at the middle school and working with the... Go ahead. Oh, you're changing the monitors? Okay, so and Betty's getting me the magic thing. I hope I press this the right direction this time. Okay, so there we go. So as you all know, after our last board, my last board presentation, there was some concerns raised by the staff that they had not felt like they had at BMS, that they had not had some of the input that they wanted to have on what we're doing out there at the middle school. So since that time, we started on February 10th, immediately after the board meeting, by having a presentation of a repeat of the presentation to the staff of the presentation I gave to the board here, and received a lot of comments from the entire faculty at the middle school. We then had a site design committee set up, which met on March 10th and March 24th to review kind of what their needs and wants were at the campus and kind of try to fit that into what we had talked about before. And so there were four major elements of what the staff was looking for. First, they were concerned about the number of classrooms that we would have on the upper campus if we basically let go of the lower campus, and making sure that they had enough classrooms. Second was Building B. There was a lot of concern expressed about the congestion getting in and out of that Building B, which is the building with the library in it. Third was their desire to have 21st century classrooms and make sure that that was included in the plans. And the last thing was there was a lot of discussion and a lot of desire to talk about what the school looked like on the exterior and within the spaces in between. It was really kind of interesting because it was the group had a lot of passion about making this place as good as we could make it. And so we started off with the discussion of the number of classrooms and kind of went back through kind of what I had presented to you guys before, and the layout that the principal, Damian Scott, had put together of how many classrooms were occupied and how well they were occupied. And we ended up kind of looking at, kind of going through, walking through at least verbally all the classrooms on the campus, and kind of identified the classrooms that were being occupied and what were some of the areas of concern. The first were these two rooms that I've marked on the board here that were rooms that are being used for educational purposes, but they're small. They're really too small for a full class, and so they're really only good for pull-out programs or something, or individualized programs and resource. The next were the two rooms there that are kind of in orange, which they felt were kind of tucked away in a corner and not as desirable as they would like to see them. Then finally, there were the classrooms that are kind of buried in the middle of Building B. Those two classrooms have no natural light outside, and the only way to get through them is basically to come in through the halls around the library. And so when we talked about all of this, we began to look at, how many classrooms the school needed and how it would be best to fit them in. And we came to the conclusion, I've left off one item here. We looked at the classrooms, the portables that are down below, and the ones that are in the kind of the light purple pink color are the ones that are being used as full-time classrooms. In other words, they have classes in it almost every period. The other ones are either partially used. The one in the upper left-hand corner next to the restrooms is used just one period a day, and the rest of them are just used for storage, or sometimes rainy day PE, but mostly storage. So we counted the classrooms we had upstairs and the classrooms we had downstairs, if you will, and decided that we could meet the needs of the school by adding 3 classrooms, and this is kind of what I presented last time, and 2 modular classrooms up in the upper left-hand corner of the site. That's the northwest corner of the site. And then a new drama classroom adjacent to the music room, and that would provide the need for the entire campus. However, there was some concern expressed by the teachers that I wanted to bring forth that, well, what happens if we have a variation in student population over time? And so we looked at that, and thanks to Tim Rahill, we got kind of a look at our enrollment you have right now. And if you'll see, the right 3 bars that go up are the current enrollment at the middle school. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And your average is 543 across all students across all grades. And you can see that when the kids that are now 5th graders move in, you're going to have the group that are 8th graders is a larger student population move out. And so if you imagine that 3-year cycle moving forward, the population of that school is actually going to decline a little bit over the coming 5 or 6 years, getting to a low point when the kids who are in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade move up to the middle school, and that you're probably going to have 50 or 60 fewer students at the middle school at that time. And then it'll go back up when the larger class that's right now a TK and K student population move in. But we imagine that you're going to be pretty good for at least 8 to 10 years with the classroom count we have. If there comes a time where you need another classroom, there is space up there for us to add a classroom, and I've dotted that in as a dashed line. Moving on to Building B, we looked at Building B, and a lot of the problems with Building B is the congestion when the students enter on either side of those restrooms right next to the library. They also have the problem with the 2 classrooms that I described before that are buried in the building, and the one off to the left where I have the congestion sign is the only way to get in is there. And there's no real way for them to use the doors on the north side of the building, which is up there with the little red X's, because that dumps basically out onto what I think of as the public street. It's really just a parking lot, but you can't let kids just exit out on the street. So we talked about ways of resolving those issues. The first was to deal with the classes in the middle. We talk about the idea of putting in solar tube skylights to bring natural light into those classrooms. In most years, you're not going to need those classrooms, so they could be collaborative classrooms that are shared by the teachers on either side to have larger group settings and stuff. The classroom on the lower left that was buried is actually buried because there's a janitor. I'm going to walk over here and point. This classroom here has exterior doors coming into it there so that kids can get in there from the exterior. But that has a janitor's closet over on that side. So what we're suggesting is we take that janitor's closet and replace it somewhere else so that we can have entries. And I'm just throwing my batteries around. Entries to those classrooms in the exterior. We also talked about the idea of putting a fence/wall out in front of the building to create outdoor learning areas outside of these classrooms, and allowing the kids to be able to go out that way and come around the building in either direction, so that kids could come into the classrooms both from within and from without. Finally, we looked at the idea of what's going on in the library right now. The library is a fairly static and older space. And a lot of 21st century library thinking in schools today is to open that up. The walls that are around it are just stud walls and could be removed. We could open that up, create an active collaborative space at the front, and quiet study, and then move the librarian's desk back to the back, so that it kind of created a more open space, and so the kids could come in and circulate in the building that way. Here's at least a couple of images of what that might look like, where you open space up, create different levels of furniture so that the kids have study areas and work areas. The libraries today have much fewer stacks of books because the kids are doing everything like we do on the laptops now. That library could also be jazzed up a great deal, and whether some of it could be paint, some of it could be using lowered ceiling areas to create quiet study or work areas, and some of it could be some sort of creative use of transparent walls to give it a little bit more openness and space. We next moved to the 21st century classroom concept, and one of the things that was really interesting about the discussion I found was that the group almost entirely focused on furniture. They felt like it was really important to try to look at what the furniture was like and how flexible it was and how it could work better in their classrooms. There was some discussion about trying to get more natural light in. They liked the idea of having some flexible walls between classrooms, but they didn't like the glass walls that are in the lower right-hand corner. They like the solid wall that's up there. That particular wall is a wall with whiteboard on either side of it. So when you close it, you can write on the whole thing. Interestingly enough, they also said that they didn't, we think that the floor to ceiling whiteboards are really cool. They said, well, nobody writes down the bottom 2 feet, and nobody can reach up here except for you, Lee. And so they said, we don't need the floor to ceiling whiteboards. We just need it in the areas that the kids and the teachers can reach. And now we can just have whiteboard paint. So it was an interesting discussion in that there was things that I expected, being an architect, I expected them to want to talk about moving walls and that sort of stuff. And no, they really wanted to look at furniture. And so Dr. Beatson has a group that's looking at, do you call it a committee or what do you call it? A committee that's looking at 21st century furniture, and we're going to try to fold that back into the work we're doing with the middle school to try to help create great learning spaces for the kids.
The flexible walls now, I've always seen them as the sound insulation. You end up having both rooms not usable because there's just too much noise. Is that any improvement in technology?
That used to be the case, and in fact, as an architect, I've taken out many of those old accordion folding partitions because they were not very good and people just closed them. The new ones that they have, like in these pictures, have a very high STC, sound transmission coefficient ratio, and when they're closed, they actually have a little seal on the wall, on the floor, ceiling, and walls, and they are very effective. They're very good. They're now equivalent to what you might find in a convention center. You go to a convention center and there's these walls between the rooms, and unless there's a lot of noise, you don't hear them. So they're very effective that way. These were some images of the classrooms that the group felt were really kind of excited about. The idea of bringing some color, bringing some pizzazz into the classroom so that they weren't so dull, and doing something with the furniture to kind of just liven the whole thing up and make this an exciting learning environment for the kids. So I'm going to move on to kind of some of the site issues that we talked about with the group. First, we talked about outdoor learning areas, and we identified 4 areas on the campus that are basically quads that we could create for learning areas. The one down in the bottom off of Tech Town it might be a good one for a gathering space. They like the idea of using the space to the left of that as some place for kids to go out. And also we talked about the idea was about once we put in a new set of portables up there, we've in effect created another quad up in that area. And they like the area of working on that. They felt it was really important to improve the circulation spaces in the campus, both kind of coming down from the main entry and across the campus, and just really beef those up. And part of that then circled back to the idea that if we got some sort of new fence and improvements out the front and closed that off from the public street, then we had an opportunity to circulate all the way around the building. There was even discussion in the group about once you trained the kids to go around that way to get into the classrooms at the top, and it became kind of a regular thing that the kids would expect to do that instead of cutting through the building. And so you wouldn't have to have a teacher monitoring them and saying, do this or don't do that. Finally, there was some discussion about the idea of where we're going to try to put a new lunch shelter and kitchen onto the side of the multipurpose room, trying to make a connection between that and the quad in front of the multipurpose room so the kids could get their lunch and go out there and sit and eat and have some space that would really work for them out there. These were some of the images that we talked about, and really the group really liked the idea of creating both gathering spaces and spaces that were just kind of had seat walls where the kids could just go out there. So you weren't spending a lot of money to do that, but it gave you a good space for the kids to gather. Finally, we talked about bringing some light into the dark areas. If you go down that main entry hallway, it's dim and it's got gray walls and it's kind of ugly, and try to do something about that, bringing several of the narrow corridors, and you can see them in the kind of highlighted in there, bringing that up, and also when we do build a lunch shelter out there, not make that a low ceiling dark space. It was really important to them to bring some light in. These were some fence ideas. I showed the board these last time, and the group did circle back, and they really liked the idea of doing something a little bit more modern with the fences and kind of bringing it up to date. And they also definitely wanted us to do something to improve the color and the texture of the tilt-up concrete walls, because that was very important to them. And so it was interesting going through them, because in some ways we came back to many of the same places we were before, but I think we had a much bigger focus on what was going on inside the classrooms and the 21st century learning. And I really feel like we've got a consensus of the group around this this direction, and we can go forward. That's my presentation there. Any questions?
Lee, did you talk any about the lighting in the interior halls and between buildings? One of the things that strikes me as we're talking about modernizing is I'm trying to get my slideshow to go back to the building drawing.
This slide here?
No, actually the buildings themselves, and not. There we go. Like back around building where classrooms 26 through 31 are, and some of those corridors between buildings are also quite dark. And
go back to this one here.
Yes, that one.
Just a second here. I'm gonna get to this one here, this slide here, because yes, we did, and there's.
Sorry, yeah.
The corridor in here, and actually back behind there, the idea of those being covered, and either taking those off and putting the cowl, the whiter covering over them, or doing something to put solar tube skylights or something in those just to brighten those things up was something we definitely talked about. And there was actually a couple of them that the idea was that, well, if we could do something to also improve the paint in between them, because they were you walk all those, not only is it dark because of all the overhangs and covered walkways, but it's dark because it's painted gray. And so if we could do something to kind of lighten that up and make it nicer. There are a couple of them in there that have the walkway, and then what's left, what was originally intended to be landscaping, but what's left is really just dirt. And there's a number of locations that for whatever reason there's plumbing pipe or sprinkler pipes that just come out of the wall of the building and down into the ground, and they reduce the circulation zone by about 2 feet. And so it makes it feel more crowded because you have this junk there. And so cleaning that up is something we talked about trying to do to make the whole thing a better place.
Yeah, we would just like to think about those dark corners and dark
Yes.
spaces back in there. I know they refer to some of them as like kissing corners and things like that. So, if we could put some extra light in there, it'd probably be a good idea.
I can make the spaces look better. I can't deal with it. It's that age group, sorry.
Just brighten them up.
Okay, any other questions?
Is your rectangles up there on those buildings, are you talking about skylights or something in there, or what?
Yes,
Okay.
we're definitely talking about skylights, bringing light into those spaces. And
Okay.
skylights is really the way to do it.
So that's those areas that
Mhm.
you're kissing corners over there.
So, Mr. Pollard, just real quick. So, what are your thoughts on the next steps in the process? I mean, we've had the upper stadium project, which was big, and then we did a nice job of continuing to come back to the board and update you. But what are your thoughts on when we would come back again and what we might be looking at?
For the middle school?
Sure.
Yeah, well, I think our next step is actually to develop a design for, really develop a design. Right now, I've got a great big blob for a skylight on the plan there, and that's not a design, that's kind of a conceptual look at it. And so it's to develop a design for what goes into these spaces and actually lay them all out. I think, Dr. Young, we also we don't have an unlimited budget on this, and so we need to be very careful about, as we're going through that, also producing a cost estimate to make sure we've defined exactly how much money we're spending on this school. And so I think that's the next step, is for us to develop a design for this and review it with the middle school's site committee, and then kind of make sure we've got a consensus on that and bring it back to the school board. This is April, and so I think we should try to have that ready for board okay before the end of this school year. We definitely want to keep this ball rolling because we can design it, and once we finish the drawings, we have to, as you know from having gone through the stadium project, we have to submit it to DSA, get their approval, and you have to bid the work. And so we're going to be hard pressed to get stuff going by next summer 2018. That is, and so I think we need to kind of move right along on it so that we can get this thing going, and so that you can actually see stuff happening in the summer of 2018.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you. Sorry to drop your thing there.
No
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. 12.2, district-wide solar project update.
Very good. I'd like to invite Miss Egan. Are you joining your retinue to the podium? So we're excited about the work around our solar project and continuing to make progress there. So we have more detail tonight about cost and then what it looks like for the district over, I think, a 20-year span, and what those savings look like for us. So we'll introduce our guest tonight again, and welcome.
Perfect. So at the March 2nd board meeting, Sage Consultants presented the design layout for the solar panels at the high school, Joe Henderson Elementary School, Matthew Turner Elementary School, and the Robert Semple Elementary School. They're returning tonight with supplemental information for the projected energy savings from the panels. The project is proposed to be funded through our $3 million CEC 0% loan, and then supplemented with CREB low interest loans. Bids for the project are due April 14th, and we anticipate returning to the board at the May 6th meeting to request approval for proceeding with awarding the bid. And I'm going to let Elliot give you some updates.
Good evening. I first off just like to say how impressive that Odyssey of the Mind performance was. I thought it was really great. Dave Struck from KW, he's so inspired, he's actually going to rap his Prop 39 performance. So, did I hear that? Oh, sorry, maybe Yeah, I might have misheard him, I guess. Great. So after my last board meeting, it sounded like I wanted to show maybe a little bit more detail around the project savings. So what I've done is put together 25-year project cash flows for the 3 potential solar projects that we're considering. And just as a quick reminder, we're talking about installing solar at Benicia High School, a slightly larger system at Benicia High School to also offset neighboring Mary Farmer, and then 3 smaller projects at Joe Henderson, Matthew Turner, and Robert Semple Elementary School. So before I dig too deep into the potential savings, I thought it's good to give you an overview of the assumptions we use for our modeling. First off, we are using a 3% annual utility escalation rate. That's supported by 30 years of historical PG&E data for the commercial rate class, so what the school is currently in right now. The project costs are conservative estimates based off current market conditions. They include both the engineering, procurement, and construction cost, as well as the soft costs. And a large portion of the soft costs, as a reminder, is a 5% contingency. So again, conservative numbers. The clean renewable energy bond rate that we've assumed is 1.25%. That's what our modeling is showing right now, but we're working with the district's financial advisors to really lock in that number. They saw a recent project that was slightly higher, about 1.75%. So we're working with them and we'll tighten that up if need be for this cash flow analysis. A big one to point out is that these estimates assume that the project does not meet the PG&E time of use grandfathering deadline for the end of the year. If you had a chance to read over our feasibility report, we talk about that in detail. But just to quickly summarize, missing the deadline for a couple different reasons, but could expect about a 20% loss in your overall savings. Lastly, in some of our project operating expenses, these aren't so much annual costs that you need to pay. However, we recommend that the district budget for them annually so that it's not a large lump sum when they're due. For example, inverter replacements would happen after 10 to 12 years, but instead of having to come up with about $100,000 at that point in time, we recommend that you start funding that on an annual basis, so it's not such a large cost out of pocket. With all that being said, I'm happy to kind of step through this. We probably need to zoom in because I'm sure no one can see that very well. Yeah, maybe.
Move your mouse over right inside and get the plus and minus.
Look at the bottom of the screen as well. You scroll down. Oh, no. There we go. The plus sign.
Sometimes it comes up. There it is.
Yeah, and if you don't mind just scrolling over. All right. So I think what's best is I'll keep it high level. Basically on our conservative modeling, if you were to install solar at Benicia High School, you have about a break-even point at 14 years from the project savings. Benicia High School is probably the second most optimal project that you could take on. The best is the slightly larger system at Benicia High School. That's going to be on the second page, if you don't mind. And if you scroll all the way over to the right, you'll see that you have positive cash flow from day one. So where the other sites have red in the first, handful of years, we're showing positive cash flow here. Yeah, please. It's a good question. So it's a bigger system, and we're actually able to install it at a pretty good economy of scale. So you're able to offset more electricity costs in a cheaper build. Compared that with the 3 elementary schools, they're smaller systems on separate sites, so they're going to be a lot more expensive to install. Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, you're projecting the cash flow positive or negative. Is that, I'm trying to understand, is that including what we already pay for energy? So is that net or
Yeah.
gross, I guess?
Yeah, so your this comparison is based off if your current situation, so no solar.
Yep.
And then it factors in the cost that you would be paying for the solar system, as well as the residual energy costs, because we're not able to completely zero out your bill. So the system is full operational costs, comparing that with what you're currently paying for nothing. So that's your net savings.
So then if we just did the high school in your first projection, then in the first 12 years, it's actually costing us more money than what we're paying out today in terms of our cash flow.
Well, so in the first scenario, you actually have about $345,000 of capital expenditures.
Yeah.
So you're not cash flow positive because of that much of an outlay to start. The other two scenarios, you financed it, so you really don't have anything down. That's utilizing the Krebs money. So that's
see.
how you're able to achieve positive cash flow sooner in the second scenario than in the first.
Can you clarify, could they use a CREB loan in the first scenario for the
Yeah,
just the high school only?
it's a good question. You know, I think it would be a little bit difficult because the bond amount would be so much smaller. So we're out of pocket $345,000 in the first scenario versus 1.2 or 1.7 million dollars in the others. So the bond appetite for that small of amount of money might not be there. There's definitely other financing scenarios that would carry a higher interest rate that could probably be explored, but I don't think you'd be able to get that 1.25, 1.5% Krebs money for that small amount.
The only scenario that makes sense would be the second scenario.
The second scenario is great in terms of savings. There's a couple things to really think about here. So again, we're being very conservative. We want to set expectations low for you all, and what we're going to do is cross-reference this from actual bids from EPC firms. So we'll run this modeling and actually with their numbers that they give us. The other thing is we have a project with the Union School District down in San Jose. We actually received pricing that was significantly lower than our assumptions. And so we think that could happen here and the savings projections would look better.
Can I ask a quick question? So is there an advantage of the first scenario?
Yeah, so what's important to think about is the money that you have available. So you've already secured a $3 million CEC 0% loan. So if you wanted to just focus on using that and not having to go out and issue more bonds or take on a more complex project, the advantage would be that it's pretty straightforward to complete solar at Benicia High School using the money you've already secured.
But to do that, for years 1 through 14, we're having to fund it with additional monies from our budget.
You are.
Additional to the $3 million.
Yeah.
So it would require us to do cuts somewhere else if we got no more funding.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a decent size out-of-pocket expense for the first scenario.
So the only way this would make sense is in that second scenario. If I say makes sense, means we do not want to do anything that further degrades our cash flow. We want to stay cash flow positive. So the only scenario is under your projections by you can take the CREB loans and going all in with the high school and their farmer, and then under no scenario does going to Henderson, Semple, or Turner make sense. If I'm saying the limitation is we'd have to take a cash flow positive.
Yeah, if you're under the constraints of cash flow positive from year one, you wouldn't be able to achieve that. I mean, prices will probably come down when we get the bids in because again we're being conservative, but not significant enough. Yeah. The advantages, though, of doing those 3 other schools is you're going to get some economy of scales on pricing for Benicia High School. The vendors would look at it as a portfolio instead of one site for solar. That's 4 sites. That's obviously better for them. So you could expect some comparative cost savings for the high school because of that. And you are able to offset your bill, but it's going to take not significant, but a decent amount of time to offset.
So the column on the far right-hand side on page 2, that includes the repayment?
Yes, all these cash flow scenarios consider the repayment. So the Krebs repayment, as well as your operating expenses and your residual energy costs are all factored in.
And that's why we see a big jump at year 15 and year 17 or something like that.
Yeah, so the CEC loan is a 15-year term. The Krebs is a 17. As soon as you're done with those repayments, obviously that comes off, and it's going to be much more, much better cash flow at that point.
So we'll see in scenario 2, in 25 years, we'll see a $4.2 million savings.
That's correct.
And that's just with the high school tagging with Mary Farmer on it.
Yeah, so just a slightly larger system that also offsets Mary Farmer.
Okay, quick question. What have you seen over the last, say, 5-6 years in technology on solar? Have they improved? Prices dropped a lot. The output. So would it be wise for us to wait on the 3 elementary schools and say 5-10 years down the road, and maybe the cost would be down and the output of the cells would be much better, or kind of throwing all that out there?
No, it's a good question. So Sage's position is that the costs have come down significantly over that 5-year period. We think they're kind of where they're going to be. We don't see a next leg down coming anytime soon. Production may slightly increase over the years, but it's going to be incremental. It's not, if you hold off that you'd find something great in 2 years. We kind of think this is where solar is going to be for the foreseeable future.
I'm personally very concerned at anything that causes an increase to our expense base. We are so, having just gone through negotiations, that this money wouldn't be available for salary increases or other projects in the future because it's required as an outlay. So, and I think a 25-year payback is that 20 years from now, there'll be different technology for green energy, and this will be out of date. I don't see it.
Yeah, I like number 2.
Can you explain the year 2 deficit in the number 2 plan?
I'm sorry, can you explain the year 2 deficit in the number 2 plan?
The year 2 deficit. Oh, sure. So there's a brief negative cash flow, and it's related to the time of use grandfathering. So that's not going to actually happen until 2019, so the second year of this scenario. But basically, the solar will have lost value at that point if you're not grandfathered. So there's a reduction in that value, which creates a quick loss in your savings.
We're still positive at 73,000.
Yeah. From a cash flow standpoint, you should be positive.
What's the margin of error on this thing? So how close are we to? 73,000 can swing. That's a pretty. You can be 0 too, right?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, so this is again a conservative estimation. We're going to rerun these numbers for the district as part of our proposal analysis, and then we're pretty locked in because that's what they're agreeing to pay. So in a short period of time, we'll have a much better sense.
So what in your mind, what would be next steps? So, the trustees have the information in front of us. I think we bring it back as an action item. And I don't know what other information, Elliot, you would provide, or we would provide to the trustees so we could make it an action item.
Yeah. Well, Roxanne, correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously we'll be getting responses back, and we'll do that. Do you want to say something?
So the bids, we went out to get bids so that they would have more accurate pricing. So it would reflect what are the true actual savings, because it's hard to make a decision on estimates. Their estimates are based on history, and not that they aren't good, but the economy is so crazy you don't know. So the bids are due April 14th, so we should have actual numbers. He'll update all of these tables and come back to you with, these are what the bids are, and you will probably see some variances in savings, and then at that point we'll ask you, how do you want to proceed? Which sites does it make sense to go forward with for the district? And if everybody feels comfortable, and you can choose site A or site all of them or none of them, whatever seems to work. And then if you want to go forward, we award the bids, and then we'll get them started. Once the bids are awarded, it's bid as a design bid. So they've done kind of a overall plan, but then the contractor takes, and they have to go do, they have a design consultant. They take the covered parking spaces through DSA. They have what's called PC documents, so it's hopefully not going to take us 6 months. But so if we decide to go, that process starts, and then we'll, in the beginning, they'll put together a schedule, projecting out timelines, and we're going to be, if we go, working with them very closely. Because, and one thing Elliot will bring back at that time too is projections showing if we're able to get construction done by the end of December and utilize that additional 25%, what does our savings look like? And these numbers do not, and it's really hard. It's really tight. We're up against it, but you know, maybe we can give some incentives or do something with the construction.
The only thing I'd ask is when you do your projections, if you could factor in what we experienced, the rising costs and the change orders, because that's not, we get a bid in, but we've been seeing as of today, right, that we're approaching 10% on the stadium.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we try to do the 5% contingency for things like that, but yeah, even maybe being a little fatter there would be better. Absolutely.
Great. Any other questions?
All right. Thank you for your time.
Is there any public questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, the big one that everyone's asked 1,000 times is where's the school calendars looking like? 13.1, consideration and approval of the 2017-18, 2018-19, and 2019-20 calendars. Dr. Gardner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So for the 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20 school calendars are being presented for approval tonight. They were drafted by a committee comprised of representatives from the district management team, the Benicia Teachers Association, California School Employees Association, Chapter 1096. We met in session, so we went over it for the outgoing 3 years. We had actually negotiated in our last negotiations with BTA to have 3 years of calendars so that we can always be 3 years ahead. So the one is currently before you tonight for the next 3 years has been ratified by the membership vote of the Benicia Teachers Association. Parents and staff were surveyed regarding the calendars and 2 different types of calendars, and the response was overwhelmingly the ones that we're bringing you tonight, Calendar A. Staff request board approval of the calendar so that it can be finalized and distributed to district employees, parents, and members of the Benicia community as soon as possible, as people are making plans right now for vacations, and so they'll know when they're coming back. For the next 3 years, they'll know when to plan.
Any board questions?
I think it's great that you can do a 3-year block if there's a way to keep that up for that.
That's the intent. So it won't be 3 years from now that they renegotiate 3 years. The intent would be that next year they'd add another year and next. So we're always 3 years out, so that we know where we're at.
Any public comment? Questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the 3-year calendars as presented.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next one, consideration and approval to authorize superintendent or designee to approve change orders in the amount of additional 3% of the original contract price for a cumulative total of 9% for the Benicia High School Stadium track and field projects. Roxanne.
At present, we've approved change orders in the amount of approximately, it's updated from since this was written, 5.93% of the original contract price in order to avoid construction delays or require additional board meetings for additional unforeseen conditions. Staff asked the board to authorize the superintendent or his designee to approve change orders in the amount of an additional 3% of the original contract price for a cumulative total of 9% for the Benicia High School Stadium track and field project. We're very excited with the visible progress of the stadium construction, finally. I brought some photos to share with the board. It's moving up there really fluidly every day. So this first photo is, sure.
What's causing the 10%, almost 10%?
Sure.
Is it the weather? Is it speed? Is it what?
No, I have those. Do you want me to go to those
Either,
first?
I'm
and
sorry,
then
I
talk?
didn't
It's
see
all
it,
right.
but yeah, go ahead.
No,
Whatever you want.
I was gonna go through photos and then
Fine.
go to those. Is
That's
that okay?
fine. Yep.
So this first photo is taken from the 50-yard line, looking towards the home bleachers. You can see the turf is mostly laid. The striping is inset. The 50-yard line logo will be placed Monday, and the Enfield text will be installed on Wednesday. The Musco field lights are installed, and the press box is installed. The contractor will be providing the custom painting that includes the high school colors and logo on the press box and all of the buildings at the latter stage of the project. So the press box right now is kind of a generic yellow, but it's going to have our colors that pop in our school logo. The bleachers are progressing well. The blue color on the bleachers, I don't know if it's possible if you can zoom in, but you can see the blue accents in there. Those are one of the items that was funded with change orders. It's a great visual upgrade compared to the metal aluminum base color originally bid. The next photo, photo number 2, is looking towards the field goals on the high school side of the field. You can see the blue turf in the end zone. We're working to acquire prices to upgrade the existing scoreboard. So the existing scoreboard works, but we're afraid it's going to be a little bit pelled to the rest of the project when everything's complete. So what we're looking to do, the poles and the bases, that will keep them. So they'll repaint the existing poles. And then on the top of the scoreboard, there's a logo and says Benicia Panthers. So there's like different levels of improvements, but one thing is you can get new, graphics for that kind of give it a modern look and top it off and update it. The boxes that have the digital text inserts, they show where the scores are shown. They're kind of faded. You can tell the graphics in there as they come up. So you can get those replaced. And then the main part of the board that's blue, you can actually get that replaced too. So I'm going to work to get pricing, and we can hire that firm direct instead of putting it through our contractor and paying markup. So we'll see how the prices come in and what makes sense and what's reasonable and not reasonable.
Have we looked at opportunity to have somebody or a company in our community sponsor a new
I
scoreboard?
think that is an awesome idea. It'd be a great.
So if you like to sponsor a new scoreboard, anybody out there?
Yep. Yeah. I think
Pass that on to everybody, because I try to go to every football game, and so many other districts or other schools have stands and which are sponsored. They have scoreboards which are sponsored by people. They have banners all over on the fence lines and everything. That's a sponsorship. So I think this would be a good thing to try to see if we get somebody to sponsor a new board. Maybe we just need to put that out there.
I think it's a great idea, and maybe I can talk with Brianna about it. In the beginning, we did talk about the possibility, a lot of companies want to come do something for you, but we talked about wanting to stay away from soft drinks, blah, 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 that can be real, political issues. But if there's a community group that might want to do it, I think that'd be a really nice fit. And probably who you guys want to sponsor is more a board decision, but we had talked about it, and the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee also brought up some of those ideas, but it was, again, wanting to be careful to stay away from soft drinks or things that we don't, want to be a little bit careful with.
Some rather large industries in the industrial park that might be willing to seek some naming rights on this. So I think we should be open to those discussions.
I think we should at least have it brought up to, see what's out there and maybe even find out what the cost of a new digital LED board would be. I don't know, is it 50,000 or is that 15,000?
No, I think it's, if you do completely brand new. And so one thing, I can't remember the prices exactly because I looked at them a while ago, but I think it was 50 plus, maybe 75, depending on where you go. I mean, there's different gradations and models. But one thing that we wanted to do, and if we were going to change that direction, we would probably need to talk about sooner rather than later, is you can replace all of the top part. If you do a similar size using your existing poles and foundation, but if you're going to do something much larger and rip those out and replace them, then that's when you start spending a lot more money. So we were looking to try to keep the existing stuff But if we're gonna change directions and say, no, we want new poles and foundation, then we would need to make that decision pretty soon so that it doesn't impact the construction, so all the construction around it doesn't get installed and then you're,
Right.
yeah.
I agree with that. And I do a lot of work constantly at Contra Costa College on their scoreboards. And I know the soccer field, I'm out there every single year replacing panels and stuff. And the ladies softball scoreboard, the company has said, if it's anything outside of the transmitter, you have to replace the whole board because we don't make those components anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's.
So, and I just don't want us to, 2 years from now, be looking, if we could get someone to sponsor a new board now.
Yeah.
So.
Good suggestions. The next photo is looking towards the visitor side bleachers. Oh, whoops, I didn't know that was in there.
Our new lights.
Yeah, in the background. Oh, there we go. Okay. In the background, we see the piers, which are the base for the bleachers, for the bleacher metal posts. They're currently completing trench drains at the top and bottom of the slope. So that is part of our change order cost. Because it's such of a wet year, we really seen the water coming down. And once you they're going to put shotcrete underneath the bleachers, and if in wet years, it could erode the shotcrete quicker. So it's, I guess in the long run of things, that we're grateful that we're handling this now and somebody isn't going to have to go try to dig it up and provide a solution later with a lot of water all over at the bottom.
I was up walking all that about 2 weeks ago. And so we had a good almost 3 weeks of dry weather, and that hill is still, it was a stream.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a little bit trickle. It was a 2-foot wide stream coming out, going down to the drains.
It is
So
amazing.
I'm glad that
the
we're
amount of
finding this
water.
now instead of 4 or 5 years from now.
And I'll go through detail, Peter, to your question, but the short answer is really the majority of this is water. And it's not even just when it rains, like today or tomorrow or for the month straight of December, but then there's water still running in the ground. And every time they excavate, it's in the groundwater. They're hitting it all the time. But I'll go through more details in a little bit.
And is that just natural groundwater, or because when we started this project, there was some hint that there was a leak up there?
So you may want to.
So some of this predates me, and feel free to jump in. There is an area over on the high school side, I'm going to call it the northwest side of the track, where there is a head wall and there's a storm drain pipe that starts there. My understanding from conversations with Alfredo is that that's the area that was discussed, that there could possibly be a leak. That water that runs there is all captured inside. It goes into that storm drain, which actually comes down at the bottom of 9th Street. So that's not the water we're encountering across the rest of the site. It's just, I think it's the natural, the Southampton all the way down. You see all of that slopes down, and it's just all making its way down there. So it is unbelievable the amount of water that just keeps coming, even though it stopped raining.
I was really surprised we haven't had rain in 2.5 weeks or so, and there was a heavy stream coming out of that hill.
Yeah. So.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, man. If we would have had all this work done, and then 4 or 5 years from now we get a rain, and all of a sudden, half our track's flooded all the time because of the rain coming through. Yeah.
Yeah. Shotcrete. So you see the piers up there. That's where the bleachers, the vertical post will be mounted for those bleachers. Shotcrete will go from just behind the first row of piers down to the bottom, similar to on the home side, so that it's like weed abatement and nuisance protection. Let's see, the Musco pole bases were just completed, and they're going to be erecting those lights in the next week or two. And so one of the items that was funded through change orders was the new Musco poles on the visitor side. The drawings as they were bid existed of reusing the existing Musco lights. So there were quite a few conversations that happened. The first thing that happened was DSA did not have closeout documents for those existing lights, meaning you can't reuse them unless you can go find the engineer from 35 years ago who signed off on them. So we did some gyrations in trying to find that. But in the process, it was also that they weren't calculated to hold the loads of the speakers. So we would have had to pay money to install speaker poles. There was like 5 different things that when you put it all together, it just didn't make sense. So it became much more obvious that get new poles. So that was one of the change order items.
It's a higher quality lamp as well, and it's new technology versus.
I know we would have had old lights on one side and new lights on the other, and you might have had a visible difference in the light that you're seeing on the, So I think all around it's a better answer. One of the items on this site of what we were talking about, that storm drain inlet on the northwest side that catches that water that's coming down, there is no grate over it, over the head wall. It's like a 5-foot diameter pipe. It's huge, and there's no grate on it. So we are working to get pricing on it. It'll be a change order item. And so I feel like it's necessary for safety, and it also will keep debris from going into the pipe. Do you want to go into
Do we own that structure? Like that's on our.
It's on our property, yes.
Property?
Yep.
So I thought when there was that pipe break up there that was not us, that was city.
Was that by the middle school, or did we have one by the high school?
It was maybe it's the middle school.
I think I don't know the history. I'm not
Okay.
sure, but I don't know about that.
So this one is.
Yeah. So this photo is looking down towards Mary Farmer. So you can see the field goal post installed in the turf. They are starting to place the formwork for the building foundations in the vicinity of the team room storage buildings. And you can see the new fence post along the left-hand side. They're starting to go in around the perimeter. And then do you want to go to the last one? The last shot is just a detail shot of the field. That's kind of fun. Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah. Change orders funded with the previously approved staff allocation of 6% include, in addition to the other items that I pointed out while we were going through these, sewer line redesign and expansion for future capability. So the sewer line, the way it was laid out, there was a lot of things that weren't optimal to us. And so we had them take it down the road adjacent to the tennis courts and tie in on Denfield Road. We had them upsize that line. So if the high school ever has anything over there they need to tie into, it'll be we did it the right way. It'll be there to tie into, and we have capacity. We had additional soils and lime treatment that were added in the beginning across the entire site and beneath the buildings. Building upgrades for concrete slurry beneath the flooring in the bathrooms and the team room buildings. We have upgraded fixtures, stainless steel bathroom partitions, because if they get graffiti on them, you can grind it down, and it's not, the high school asked for that, and it was not a huge cost, so we felt it was a good thing. We're getting hard ceilings in the bathrooms. The pop-up ceilings, I guess, especially in the bathrooms, are in the team rooms constantly kind of beat up by the students. We had DSA required ADA parking at the lower tennis courts, removal of hazardous pipe and prior abandoned light bases that were inside the field. We had large boulders, like the size of a VW, that they had to dig out and move when they graded the field. It's amazing, yeah. It is amazing what they have found in that field. We have powder-coated guardrails to match the existing black fencing, and it will also give us better longevity with those on the guardrails. We had fencing that was required on top of the retaining walls at Mary Farmer Elementary School. It's a code requirement. And then we had keys for shotcrete shoring and stabilization. So that's what has been funded with the 6% allocated to date. The contractor is currently asking for additional changes due to rain and complications. Their bid included drilling all of the pier holes at one time, then replacement of the rebar cages all at one time, followed by concrete pours of all of the piers concurrently, followed by surveying for bolts. The piers are up to 30 feet in depth, and when they started drilling, after 1 or 2 piers were drilled, the high groundwater content, an unforeseen condition, inundated the holes and then caused the sidewalls to slough off. The remedy was to dig out the slough soils, and then place the rebar cage and then pour the concrete. There are approximately 60 piers total, so they planned on one trip out for each phase, and they had to do, many trips. Right now, we are in the process of having their request reviewed. Construction manager's looking at it, the IOR is looking at it, the architect is looking at it, and we, of course, are going through it. So that's part of what we know we'll need to, whatever balance we come to with that request, that we'll need to pay for with the additional monies that we're asking for, with going up to 9%. The good news is that all of the piers are installed and they were all inspected, approved, and as per the plans and specifications, and that we are moving along. With the majority of the underground work complete, we are hopeful to be through the needed changes due to ground conditions. The buildings are in production and we have a targeted site delivery date in early to mid-May. We continue to be cautiously optimistic that the field will be complete enough to host graduation in June, weather permitting. As discussed prior, we don't expect that construction will be 100% complete, but instead that the bleachers will be occupiable and that the field will be available. It is likely that temporary bathrooms and sound system will be needed. Alfredo is working to order chairs that have sled legs in lieu of pointed legs, as well as protective mat for the field during graduation. I'm awaited updated construction timelines, but at present it appears completion will be mid-summer. In order to avoid construction delays or require additional board meetings for additional unforeseen conditions, staff asked the school board to authorize the superintendent or his designee to approve change orders in the amount of an additional 3% of the original contract price for a cumulative total of 9% for the Benicia High School Stadium track and field. Our project budget that was set up in the beginning includes a contingency of 10%, so our requested action does not exceed that amount.
What do you think is the likelihood of staying under 9% all in by summer, or do you think you'll be back for more?
I think that we're going to be really hoping to be at 10. There's just enough stuff on the horizon. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if it came above 9.
So should we just be authorizing you to go up to 10?
If you're comfortable with that, I would love that. But yeah.
So as somebody sort of new to this project, so what is the full cost, or what was the estimated full cost? So what does 10% mean to us essentially?
So the project costs $9,100,400. So 10% is $900,000. Yeah, $140. Yeah. Yeah, and so in construction, 10% is a pretty standard number that you hold, and it's, when you have small projects, 10% of a small number doesn't seem that much stunning, but when you have large projects, there's just so much work, and it just rolls so much faster that it's still within the industry standard is kind of where we're at.
Okay, thank you. And are there any of sort of those items that are there any items that are sort of discretionary that we could choose not to do? I mean, obviously stuff around safety and keeping a structure sound is clearly important to do.
So the decisions that we've made right now, I mean, like the polls, that to me would not have been a good decision. And we discussed it with Charles and with Tim, and I think Gary was in some of those earlier conversations as well as with everyone else. So, I mean, you could have said no, but you would have spent more money, had something that wasn't a good result. And so when you talk about necessity versus not necessity, part of that decision comes with a judgment call as to what your product is. And I think part of that is you don't want to save $100,000 in your product that you present, really. On the other hand, we're certainly not getting a Mercedes. All of these conversations go through. So we almost have it's not a formal committee, but they all go through the inspector of record. They go through the architect for recommendations. Some of them go through the construction manager if I want an additional outside opinion. And they certainly go through Charles and Tim. And so it's a consensus as to, does this make sense that this was a good decision and that it's a good use for the district monies? Yeah, so the things that are outstanding, so the grade across the storm drain, I think we got to do that. The The scoreboard, I think that we can certainly reach out and kind of, that doesn't have to be done when the project gets done. They can come in and do that. So we can say, let's look for other funding options and other people to help with that. And it works right now. And maybe it takes 6 months or a year or whatever to find that person in the right fit, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe they are able to get in there right away. But so that would be something I think that we could say, let's parcel out to the side. Don't do that so much. There aren't really too many other things that I know just front and forefront in my head that I could say they're not really needed, that it's kind of optional at this point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Is there any public questions or comments? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to, I was gonna make a motion, we move that we authorize up to 4%, so getting to 10%.
For a total of 10%?
For a total of 10%. And my suggestion is if you can get the scoreboard in for that, I would do that, and then we can sell and get money later, given that it's probably a shame to build it, cut the ribbon, and then tear down the scoreboard again 3 months later. But I would say that, I would just be cautious. I wouldn't want you to go over 10%. I mean, that's what we budgeted for. We planned it to get it all in. Terrific. But if it would be a shame to ask for 11 or 12. I just don't think that would be right. But I'm making a motion that we authorize up to 10%.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I just make a quick announcement? We have a tree that's fallen down on the far side over here, and I guess it's covering most of the road. So when we leave, we're gonna have to exit out the back way here. And maintenance has been notified, Alfredo has, and so I believe they're sending somebody out, but right now there's a tree across the road. Yeah, by Liberty High School, yeah.
That's what I was just saying.
And not that I'm aware of. I'm not that I'm
Unless it's hiding under the tree.
Thank you.
Speaking of weather related. Yeah. Peter, thank you guys for your approval, and I guess I just want to, there's no guarantees, but we would hope as we go across these projects, like the fire alarm came in at 3%. This one it's been difficult with the rain. Hopefully, as we go across the averages, that we'll have some happy place that we get to, well, a more easy place that we get to come to. The other thing that the steering committee for the bond has been working on, setting up and prioritizing for the rest of the projects, and we'll be coming to you guys. But one of the things that we have talked about within the DO is that maybe we consider a line item of a contingency in that, so that if you have all of these projects, the last one that gets built doesn't take the cut because of the other ones that went over. So we'll work with that and keep trying to do what we can.
Can I just, I'm sorry,
Sure.
If we proceed with the solar project, is there any disruption to the stadium project, or need to dig up things, run lines or anything?
No, so the solar project, and whether you're here, so the panels on the upper part, I believe that the place they tie into the transformer is down the Z lot, right? On the other side. Yeah, and so
Farmer,
there won't actually be any panels on Farmer because they have a contiguous property line. We get to, because the high school has a more advantageous site to put the panels on, we'll actually put additional panels at the high school, but we'll get to average the energy cost of both Mary Farmer and the high school and apply the savings across both schools, because otherwise
we don't run a line to Mary Farmer at all?
No, there's no physical time. It's something called a net metering aggregation.
Okay.
So you aggregate those extra bill credits that you're generating at Phoenicia High School towards the
Got it.
Could we just say, as change orders come up, just kind of keep us informed, updated on where we are and what they are?
Absolutely. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, be monthly or whatever. I mean, we're hoping to be done in a few months anyways, but the other thing, The other thing I was gonna just kind of throw out there, so right now we're looking at stadium, the stands, the seats are being done, are completed on both sides. This, if it's no more hurricane rains and winds.
I know.
The turf all completed. The track poured in concrete, maybe not poured in the,
Correct. I think that they're, so at a minimum, the track would have like a rock base around
AB
it.
base, okay.
Yeah, and if we had to, we could put tarp or whatever over the top of it to bridge it. But they are anticipating that they'll have at a minimum the asphalt down on the track. They don't, the last thing that goes in on the stadium is the track surfacing, because they use that to run their machines on. You don't want to wreck your track. So the buildings, I'm really doubtful that they will be done. After they get set, they have at least a month of site work that they have to do. So I don't think you're going to be able to use a PA system, because the PA
Goes
runs
in one of the
from the
buildings.
centers of the buildings. I think you're going to have, our hope is that you're going to have bleachers that can be occupied with parents in them, and you'll have the field. So we'll probably end up needing to get a temporary bathroom building. But you can get some nice ones. It doesn't have to be the Honeywell or the Honeybee or whatever it is. And we're probably going to have whatever our temporary means is for a mic system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, don't run away, because you're up next. Discussion and possible action to review the Proposition 39 Energy Efficient District-Wide Measure Study.
So we have David Struck with KW with us. He's going to rap for us, is what I hear. The Proposition 39 grant monies are available to the district for funding of energy efficiency improvements to our facility. KW has completed their district-wide energy efficiency evaluation and will present their findings and recommendations. If acceptable, staff request approval to proceed with vendor solicitation of requests for qualifications for the identified work. And here's David to tell you about what we get to do with our money. So this is this funding is from Prop 39. It's not bond.
It's not out of your pocket. And just about on that rap thing, I have a family joke that there was a basketball movie years ago called White Guys Can't Jump. I don't rap either, so. So at the last meeting, we put up numerous slides. I understand you have about 17 slides in your packet that you were handed. And I was also very encouraged to hear the discussion about the middle school and some of the potential energy efficiency measures. Now, some of that stuff, skylights, sky tubes, light into certain areas, is not part of the scope. But once you get the money from the state, you can play the shell game and decide really where you want to spend the money if you want to take advantage of other opportunities. So with that said, this thing. There we go. Okay. So this is a slide that we used in the previous presentation. Still looking at pretty much the same scope of work, except that we did add transformers. We were informed by the maintenance department and by Roxanne's office that you had a couple of screamers over at the middle school. So we looked at those, we took down the nameplate data, and that sort of rolled over into the same issue over at the high school on a couple of transformers. There's one that's currently disconnected because it's part of the football stadium project, I believe, as well as looking also at the transformers at your elementary schools. Now, frankly, transformers is something that is in the Prop 39 program. Frankly, we really hadn't dealt with that as a measure, as an energy efficiency measure, but it pencils out very, very well for the district. It's an excellent measure to do. There's a lot of energy savings behind it because you're going from an old, basically battleship, to something that's fairly new. So adding the transformers to the scope of work was a real good move. And it also, our objective is that the district has somewhere between $880,000 and about $950,000 that Prop 39 has your name on it. Our goal is to get you that money with a a planned scope of work. And then once you get that scope of work, you can do that scope of work, or you can also move those shells around a little bit. Okay, so that's really an important aspect of the whole thing. So
the LED lighting. When I was at the Giants game Friday, I noticed they've replaced all their lighting, stadium lighting, with LED lights.
Stadium lighting, or
Yeah,
just interior?
stadium lighting.
Big bucks. The biggest problem with LED stadium lighting, because one of our clients is Pittsburgh Unified, and they were looking at doing that. And they looked at, in fact, the issue of your posts came up. You know, the age of those posts, the certification, DSA approval of those posts. With LED panels, you have a much bigger face area. So if you think of that face area in high winds, 65, 80, 100 feet in the air, you have a whole different dynamic. So you have a whole different loading pattern on the poles. I think with the amount of hours that your field is used, it's hard to say sometimes, because you know the LEDs are more efficient and the technologies are getting better and better every day. In fact, I heard Roxanne mention Musco Lighting. Musco is one of the companies that sells LED stadium lighting now. But we've talked to them at great length, and with high school hours of operation, that's the key. So the increased cost to put in LED and the savings you would realize over time is just, it doesn't pencil out very well. Yeah. Now, interior stuff and other areas that's easy to get to, don't have the wind loading.
The AT&T Park was remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah.
No shadows and bright lights.
Well, if you ever do any, long distance traveling, some of the big interstates, turnpikes and stuff back east, where you drive through these big, huge, thousands of acres area, and they've got these poles that most of those are LEDs now. Yeah. But you've really got to engineer for them up front. So, there's really no other surprises in here. We talked about just to make sure. Oh, Dr. Young, you mentioned about the heating vent units on the locker rooms at the high school. We've added that to the plan as well. Now, I will tell you, in fact, I believe the breakdown by site is in your packet. And I believe the savings going from the old to the new is about $200 a year. So the SIR, that savings to investment ratio, which is really important, is really bad. But you have other measures in the program that brings it back up, and you can help pay for those units out of this program. So thank you for the comment. We didn't hit that one, so that was a real good catch. Yeah, everything else there has been pretty much covered. Any questions so far on the scope? Okay. So this slide is again just a summary of all the sites, and so really the important thing is where I have the red circle around. The SIR stands at 1.7. Your minimum is 1.01. You would have to have a huge downfall in the savings and a huge increase in the cost to make that a problem. So you have plenty of wiggle room in your savings to investment ratio with what we've developed. You notice under the net cost Prop 39 funding, you have about $1,040,000. That is more than what your planned allotment is. Now, I mentioned that we don't really know right now what the 5-year allocation is going to be, because the state hasn't informed us yet what year 5 is. It can be, again, too, right now I'm saying you're somewhere between $880,000 and about $950,000. With that in mind, what we're asking for tonight is basically your authorization. I'll work with Roxanne's office and get the submittal to the state down right at where you want to be to capture every penny of your allowed funding. That's easy to do. We can move the numbers around and decrease costs and stuff in here. We've got made some assumptions for all the transformers at all of your campuses that are in that budget right now. So there's ways to move things around to make it work. I also want to point out too, the far left column of numbers is the peak KW savings. That's also could be a factor too with your solar installation too. So you might be able to downsize. In fact, Bill and I were just sharing this, that reduction in peak demand could also enable you to downsize your panels a little bit. We'll talk more extensively about that, but there's another opportunity. That KW savings doesn't really play into the energy savings as far as dollars, because of the way your rates work for the most part, but it does work out, overall. at about $95,000 a year in savings. And to that point, I think about scoreboard, right? Yeah. And incidentally, too, if I may interject, totally off topic, is I was real involved with Santa Ramon Valley High for 8 years, ran concessions. And during that time, they had the scoreboard replaced. So they got companies that came out and did not only the panels on the board, but also they went high hog and did the Diamond Vision screen. And you get advertisements that can put up there. So you're not really locked into one advertiser. To put on that hard copy, you can have sort of a revolving thing. So that worked out really well and became very lucrative for the high school. So just an idea. Totally off topic, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any questions here?
Are you interested in sponsoring a school? Oh, on this one.
Let me talk to my boss about that one. We're a small firm.
So just to highlight to point out the
microphone.
Yeah.
As you're moving along, though, that with this plan, it looks like $95,000 savings in energy cost a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to also just put in your brain about how that splits between gas and electricity cost, your therms cost is about 29,000 therms, and it's usually about $1 a therm, so it's about 30 grand. That is part of that 95,000. So you're looking at about $65,000 in savings from the electricity out of that equation. You don't have to pay it back. It's free money. It's got BUSD stamped all over it. Okay. God, you're right. So one thing I want to point out too with the next slide is we're talking about timeline. There is the goal to get this plan submitted to the state by August 1. We're in great shape. No worries there at all. There is a slide, there's a block on there. It says encumbrance by June 30th of 2018. A question?
No, I was wondering, given the people coming in and out, we're staying here overnight.
I've got a 19-year-old car. I was hoping the tree hit that. But it does say encumbrance by June 30th of 2018. There was just a discussion through the oversight, Citizens Oversight Committee, that they're trying to push that encumbrance. That just means they want to see you have a contract for, or the money spent for the measures under your plan by that date. It's really aggressive. And I think the state and the Energy Commission and the State Department of Education got a lot of pushback on that encumbrance date. So don't think that's really in stone, but it's a good target. It's a good target. So you'll get your money. If we submit this plan for you, you'll probably get, and this goes back to what I mentioned to you, I believe last time, as far as there's 4 years of allocations that have already been scheduled. There's a 5th year that's not, we don't even know what that amount is until November. So if we submit, and it gets, not if, when we submit, you'll get your check likely probably 3rd quarter from the state. So you'll get 4/5 of your money in that quarter. When the state then releases its allocation schedule for the 5th year, then you will see all 100% of the money that you're owed from the program. Okay.
David, can you, and then,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The dates that I saw, I think that they're talking about extending that 2018 date to 2019. Is that what the discussion is right now?
Yeah. At least a year's extension. And they threw this August 1st deadline on us sort of out of nowhere, and they threw that at us back in November. A couple points I want to make. The transformer estimates that we came up with, we're pretty certain about the high school and the middle schools. Right now we're sort of running wild and loose on the transformers from the elementary, because that discussion hasn't really taken place for very long. We've slotted in numbers that we're pretty confident on, but as you get your money, we have plenty of time to narrow that down. All of the engineering costs all the implementation costs do include soft costs for engineering and DSA if appropriate. So you're in pretty good shape there. And like I said, the nice thing about the program there's a lot of nice things about the program, but they created this amendment process so that, like I said, you can submit your plan, and your plan is going to be exactly every measure and every therm and kilowatt hour savings and dollar of cost that we've identified. We'll submit that plan, but then you have the flexibility. And ultimately, you have to prove it doing what's called an amendment document to the Energy Commission, just to show, okay, you got $100,000 for this, but we only spent 50, and we spent the other 50 on something else that saved energy. The fact that you have that much wiggle, that 1.7 SIR, is huge, is fantastic. And just be glad that you're talking about doing solar now or later, and you didn't do it 10 years ago, because the districts that did were early adopters, ironically sad, but those early adopters are catching it in the backside right now as far as cost of utilities.
I had a quick question, just as I think you're getting close to the end. That if we get more Proposition 39 money in outer years, we will have. My understanding is you can't use Proposition 39 money on energy generation until you maximize energy efficiency, right? So if we get more Prop 39 money in the future, could we use it to pay off our interest-free loan that we would be using for solar?
You can't touch the loan, because that eco loan is based on the savings achieved through the money that you use those loan dollars for.
Right.
So there's no overlap. However, you're dancing right on the edge of that of being correct. Is that the program recommends that you do efficiency first. It's called loading order. And the analogy is, you don't buy a big rig tractor until you know how big the load you're going to be carrying. So you want to figure out what your load's going to be, and then you size your solar, your on-site generation, to accommodate it. But as far as the funding, let's say if we identified $600,000 worth of measures, you could potentially, but you'd have to do it through a PPA to use that $300,000 to spend towards solar. If the Energy Commission, which we think they will do, extends it in we don't know if it's going to be another 1, 2, or 5 years, but if they extend it, absolutely. I mean, solar generation, on-site generation, whether it be solar, wind, fuel cell, or what have you, is still a major point of topic. Coal plants, I don't think so, but it's something that you can definitely dig into with future energy money. Wind power, go down the road and stuff. So finally, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were.
Well, yeah. Next steps, board approval. We submit the plan to the CEC. It's our job to respond back and forth with the CEC if they have any questions. They always do. And then the district can then solicit RFQs for engineering, and then next step would be the construction, cost of implementation. And right now the plan is to build over the summer of 2018, but that's not in stone. You do have some flexibility. And then CEC completion is currently June of 2020. But again, too, right now, the way the legislature is working, them looking at another Senate bill to extend Prop 39 seems to be pretty real. So, but right now, we got to deal in reality. Plan is sound. Get the money in your pockets. Figure out the best way to spend it as you move forward in the next year and a half, 2 years. That.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any public questions, comments? Okay, so so we're looking at the approval to proceed with vendor solicitation of RFPs for identified work.
And also to submit to the CEC for the document, because that procures our funding.
So hold on a minute, Roxanne,
Yeah.
hold on, because I think I have that in here. RFP, blah, blah, and then, I'm sorry, what else?
And to submit,
Just if I may, authorization that we submit your plan for you on your behalf to the state.
Okay, make a motion that we submit the plans to CEC for approval and that we put out the solicit RFP.
I second
all in favor, say aye.
that. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Consideration and approval resolution number 16-17-14, reducing the number of classified employees due to reduction of particular kinds of services for the 2017-18 school year. Dr. Gardner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Staff's requesting approval of this resolution to authorize a reduction of particular kinds of service provided by classified staff for the 2017-18 school year. In order to reduce or eliminate any particular kinds of classified services, in accordance with statutory requirements, board passage of the attached resolution is required. The positions that we're asking to reduce are affected is elementary guidance assistants, which is 5 positions. They are paid out every year out of a funded grant, and we do not know until sometimes until October if that grant's going to be reissued. So this is an annual layoff of those positions. The other one is a behavior assistant that we've had. This position being laid off because of the one student that this behavior assistant is assigned to is aged out of the program. So he's turned 22. So therefore, the behavior assistant services are no longer required.
Is there any board questions? Public questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
I move approval as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Holguin? Trustee Monette? Trustee Morgan? President Wing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, 13.5, consideration and approval of the addendum to the employment agreement of the superintendent and the Benicia Unified School District. So we, when we hired our superintendent, we had him on probation for 2 years, looking at his, every 6 months doing a review and everything, and I'm happy to say that most of the time we're happy. I have to put that in there once in a while, I'll keep him grounded a little bit, keep him on his feet. So, we bring this forward and to you for that. So, any questions on that?
I say it's a pleasure working with Dr. Young. We're very fortunate in this district to have him. And we hope this is a minor token of our appreciation and confidence and trust in his leadership.
Mm-hmm. Any public comments or questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I will move that we approve the contract addendum between Dr. Charles Young and BUSD.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Okay, with that, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.